So this is the Western Australian burl. These are usually denser than water, so they don't always float. This is got incredibly wild grain running in every direction. Trying to cut this flat surface with a gouge, it always wants to chip because the grain somewhere across the surface is completely the wrong direction for a gouge. Can't use a conventional scraper because it grabs, but negative rake is fantastic. And this is why I developed negative rake for this exact material. Now, there are lots of different eucalypt burls from Western Australia. There's red marley, brown marley, this is York gum, but they all work the same, as in super dense, super crazy grain. So I'm going to mount this up. It's been worked for another video before. I'm going to resurface it, return the back, and then match the front and the inside of the bowl to what I turn on the back. So let's put it onto the chuck. We do need to, when we're doing a wing bowl, whenever possible, to bring up the tailstock. Very important, because the danger factor of these is very high. This is not a beginner project. This is definitely advanced. And if you're going to turn one of these for the first time, turn a 4x4 square, not something like this. It's off center. It's really hard to see the outer corner to know where it is. But I've been turning these for close to 40 years, so I'm very familiar with them. But we still need to stick to the same rules of safety all the time with these. So let's set ourselves up to do the wing. Again, the wing is got a pretty good finish because I did demonstrate with it before, but let's also bring up the tailstock, and that's our safety device. This is ensuring that no matter what, it's now locked in the chuck with additional pressure here. Not a tremendous amount, just enough to lock it in. We'll set the tool rest up to match this surface because I'm just going to do a skimming cut with a fresh burr. I'll recut the outside of this, finish off the corner, leave the tenon on, and then we can reverse it round, and then we can work to make it thin from the other direction. Let's first talk about the two scrapers I would never use on this. And obviously, as we can see, this conventional scraper with a 70-degree angle and with a burr would be a bit of a monster on it. The reason being, the burr is going to interact with its end grain surface, the density, and also this wood can already flex a little bit, so it's going to pull it onto it. So, and I could make this scraper narrower and narrower, and then it makes it harder and harder to use, but nevertheless, it would just be aggressive like hell, and I wouldn't want to use this on here. So you might think, oh, I'll use carbide, because carbide doesn't have a burr. And with carbide, it's a small surface contact area. Problem with the carbide, again, it's still a form of genuine scraping. It's not abrasion that we're going to be using with a burr. And so across here, this would be difficult to use. Across here, it's small surface contact. It's got a bit of a radius on it. It's quite tight. So we're going to end up with a series of grooves on here, and it's still going to be attracted to the spaces between the corners and attracted to this dense end grain material. So the carbide is not going to give us any benefit. What is going to give us benefit is we can choose a reasonably wide using a skew here, 10V. This would give us a great surface finish on here. It's not going to interact with the surface other than abrade it with the burr. It could be super easy, but I'm going to take the advantage of having an even wider one, replaceable blade 2-inch wide, 15V, which is the longest edge steel in the world, and I can skim in this surface again and get it flawless. And this will be the easiest. Now this wood is very dry, very dusty, so I'm going to just wear a conventional mask, and I'm also going to wear safety glasses plus a face shield. So this is freshly sharpened. It has a 20-degree top bevel angle and a 20-degree lower bevel angle, and it was sharpened underneath last, creating the burr on the top, and I can feel the burr the whole way along. It's very present, and this is going to allow me to work this surface. Now this burr will give me between at least 90 seconds to maybe 2.5 to 3 minutes of work time. I shouldn't need that long because I'm just going to give this surface a light touch up again. It's already pretty clean because it was negative rake scrape before, but I'm going to make sure it's running true to the bowl and to cutting the tenon one more time so that when I turn it over, I don't have a stack tolerance of it starting to run out. We set our tool rest at the right height to be able to work this, and we can work it right into the corner. Now, before we get going, one thing I'm missing here right now, let's make sure that our tool rest is super accurate. The easiest way is to bring a pencil, because the pencil is yellow, it's a straight cut. And we can see I did line it up pretty good. Maybe it's a tiny bit of a nudge here. So we can use the tool rest as a guide. I'm not putting any curvature on this for now, just straight is ideal for this particular one. The maximum speed around about 1100 if I can cope with that, because it does have a broken surface and it is unbalanced. And you can see I've got an extra tool in the tool lathe, so let's take this off so it doesn't vibrate. Now, where this gets tricky is it's hard to see. Now, I'm very used to working these, so the first time you get going, it's just a shadow, and as you get in closer, it gets more invisible. So I can start way back here and come in till I see and feel, there it is. And then I'm going to wear a mask because it's very dusty. And I'm just looking to true this up again. And you can hear the intermittent, but the nice thing about the negative rake is it's not grabbing at all. I'm looking to use all of the edge. And it's got a slight curve in this edge. It's not exactly flat, but it's only slightly curved. Obviously, we're not taking out very much here at all on this one because this has already been surfaced from before. I'm just making sure it is running true. I'm going to get the ultimate finish I can. Let's have a look at that. So we barely took anything off this at all because it was already running very true. I don't have any tear out whatsoever here. It's all great. Like I said, that was just a skimming cut, and that would be ready to sand with maybe 180 at the worst, 220 if need be. Let's cut it in the back of the bowl, make this the shape we want and the size we want, because that'll be almost the right size, but we will need to leave a tenon on for now to be able to regrip this. So here I'm going to use a gouge to cut this in. We may finish it with negative rake at the very final stage, but let's just make sure that we can cut it with a gouge. Now on the curved surface here, the gouge does a great job, but it doesn't do it on a flat surface. So here it's taking advantage of all the grain getting taller, 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 no matter which direction it's running in. And that's the advantage with the gouge here. So let's make sure everything is super tight, check that all areas clear. And let's bring in the gouge and cut that in a little smaller. It's too big for this size bowl. And then we'll put a fresh tenon on that. So the gouge cut that well, no torn grain. I've left a little excess here because we're rounding that later, but we want to get this area here, the first 3/4 of an inch, just about finished. And you can see I didn't go into the corner with the gouge all the way because I'd have gone below this surface. So now I need to match up these two surfaces. And one of the easiest tools for that is a beading and parting tool because it's square across, and this corner here is about 90 degrees. I can clean up the face and clean up the bowl section with the same chisel using a burr on the side of the beading and parting tool. So this is a freshly sharpened beading and parting tool. I actually have a burr down the side here and have a burr on the top, and I can work both areas, get that area finished, and then all it'll require is sanding later, and then we'll concern ourselves with the tenon in a short while. So make sure the burr is facing up, and I don't quite have enough space here, so I can see what's happening. I'm going to go to a shorter handle. I don't need the leverage, but my handle is hitting this. So we want to keep the tailstock here as that added safety. And here I have enough space. Have to remove this little door and down. And let's go back to being able to use it like this. Burr facing up, working into the corner. So flat on the surface. Actually, I'm going to go still a little higher here. And the tailstock is still a little bit in the way. But we can work with that. So here I'm blending between the original cut and where the gouge got to, and then I'm taking this and just smoothing this in here with the side of the tool, right in there, and then back into the corner. And let's take a look at that, because we need a perfect corner, because we can't fix it again later with sandpaper or anything, and we have a great corner there. We've got no torn grain. Let's put a quick tenon on here. I've got a skew available. That's the fastest and easiest way to do it. Don't need a big bite. To make sure I've got location as well as grip. So I've got a shoulder, that's here, and then I've got the tenon here. And that shoulder is very slightly undercut, so I get location on that outer edge of the shoulder. And let's swap this around. I'm not sure it'll fit this set of jaws. We may have to go to the next chuck size down, but let's see, because these are Vic Mark jaws and these are 3-inch jaws, and we may get lucky that it'll fit Artie. I think it's going to be oversized for the 2-inch, yes. So we're going to see if it fits the next size chuck up, and that would be ideal. I believe that may just fit. We are good. So let's swap out the chucks. Remember, location is very important when gripping. So I'm making sure I've got true location. I'm not hitting somewhere I shouldn't be inside the chuck, right on the front of the jaws. And that should indicate that we're running true to our bowl and our wing that we just produced. I've not fully tightened this quite yet. Let's give it a pinch more. I'm going to start super slow and just verify that it's running true. Nope, there's a little bit of a wobble on there, so let's find out where that's coming from. So this can be sometimes, as we go smaller, am I grabbing on this? That might be the case, that I think that I'm actually touching on that waste piece here. So I'm going to reverse this around and turn that right off. So chucking is critical that we get it right. As you can see, I made an error, not realizing that this little core that was left over is too great. So we'll put this back on. We just need to get rid of it. Don't need to get rid of it completely, but it needs to be small enough that it's not interfering with the jaws that I just used. We'll again play safe. Let's bring up our tailstock and we'll turn that down a little smaller, but we'll keep our tailstock there. It is again added safety, but we'll cut in here just a little more with the gouge and make it small enough to fit inside those 3-inch jaws. Check it clears, start slow. And that should be small enough to go inside the bowl, inside the chuck now. Let's give that a turn. There we go. Now we can see, let's start real slow. Now we've not fully tightened it, but you can see that's now running true. So simply leaving a tiny bit too much excess on the bottom, create a problem. Let's locate that really accurate. Now I'm going to give this a really good tighten using the Allen key this way around. And we're still going to bring up the tailstock while we work the wing, and we can get rid of the tailstock later. So the tailstock is going to come up and give us that added security. Okay. So here I've matched the true rest to the wing, and we're already quite thin. So you can see I can already bend it. Now, can you cut it with the gouge? The gouge is still pretty sharp. It's only done one small cut. We can try to see how it works with the gouge, but we're going to see the effect of the gouge. It's going to chip it. So we don't want to chip it too deep where we can't fix it with negative rake. So where everything's secure, secure, secure. We've got this on. Let's start slow. Let's have a look at what we've got. Two rests at the correct height. And then let's take the speed up. Now, one thing I'm going to do here before we get going is clean the bed so I can get some idea of what I'm looking through rather than looking at the fibers that are the same color as the wood. Now, this is where it's a little bit tricky. This side here is very broken surface, very tricky to follow and see here. So if I'm coming in with the gouge, which is viable, and I'm at 1200 RPM, and the gouge is sharp. Now, I'm not wearing gloves or a short sleeve, and the start of the cut is around here. You can mark that with tape if you want. What you can do is bring the gouge in, see where you're at, and then we can lean in and take small cuts. Now you'll see with the gouge, it will cut it, but it will not make it perfect. So we can get it close. And you see how dusty and dry this wood is? And even after turning over 1,000 of these, I'm still surprised that the cut starts earlier than you think, right out here. Because you just can't see it so easily with the eyes. Now let's have a look to see where we're cutting through here. See the gouge making a complete monster mess of it. That is completely torn out. That is not going to work with the gouge. So the problem is the grain is coming out at such a crazy angle, it's 100% ripping it out. And that's pretty deep. So if I kept going with the gouge to remove some of the bulk material here, it's not going to help me because that damage is going to be too deep. And as you can see, where I worked it with a negative rake scraper before, there's no torn grain. Where I work it with a gouge, it's just ripping it out. Now it's cutting through the fibers clean here on the edge. That's super sharp, but it's just ripping out the grain because the grain is just in a wild direction. And so even though technically this is end grain and I'm cutting through the side of it, it's still not giving me the result. Now you could say, I'll try a different grind, I'll try a different flute type, I'll try a different bevel angle. It won't make any difference. So we have to go to negative rake. And we're going to do it in a series of little grinds. So I'm going to have to use a screw chisel on its side right now to show you how beneficial that is, because I don't need a Y tool. I need to cut in, cut in, cut in, work the surface, cut in, cut in, cut in small amounts, because this material is probably the hardest of all materials in the world to finish in this particular position to get the finish we're looking for, which is down to 1/8 of an inch, super crisp and sharp, no torn grain. So this skew's already got a burr still left on it. It's a little wider than I need for this particular job right now until I do the skimming cut. The reason being is I'm going to be just using mainly the small area at the front, and then that's going to be dull in no time because we're going to be not aggressive per se, but I'm going to do small bite in, and also push sideways. I'm going to use a little bit of the burr and the edge that's created on the side of the chisel here to help me work in as well. So again, it's hard to see where I'm at, so I got to find. So light is difficult, so I'm going to find this surface. There it is, and then I'm going to work it in. We're looking to finish an area. So you see I'm going sideways and forwards a little bit. Going sideways and forwards. So let's see what the result is, because we've not done too much for now, but let's see if we improved it. It's crazy how clean this is working this surface. And remember, this burr will be gone pretty quick because I'm asking to do a lot. So I'm going to get down a little bit closer to my finished thickness, sharpen it, finish this area, then move on. So we don't want to keep going though, not for too long. So again, position my chisel in there. Let's work a little bit of the surface. Slow, methodical. You see, it's just dust that's coming off. But I can feel my burr's gone because I'm starting to work a little harder. I'm pushing. And this is the most critical part. Here we can cut in going forwards as well. You see, it's just pure powder. Let's stop here. And I'm running at just over 1200 RPM. So we've not damaged the fibers yet, and we've kept them pretty sharp, but we're getting close to our finished surface. So let's make sure we don't go too long with this. What I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get 3 or 4 skews, so I'm not going back and forth. I'm just going to grab narrow ones, put a burr on them right now, and I'm going to show you how to use a couple of skews at the same time for the benefit of that I don't have to go back and forth to the grinder. There's no way I can finish this whole area with one grind. That would be impossible. So here we are. We can see where I work this with the skew. It's getting even more flexible. But I'm going to skim this surface again, just to show you the finish we get off the gouge. And remember, this should be the correct cut. If you think about it, this is end grain facing this way, so we're cutting through the side part of the fibers, but we're still ending up with this monstrous finish. You might think, I could use a bottom bowl gouge. You use 50 degrees. It's not going to improve it. It's going to stay the same. And as you get to a dollar and dollar angle gouge, say 55, 60, 65, this would just want to bounce off the surface because it's so flexible. And so we need a sharp gouge, and I've just resharpened it, but I'm going to show you if I cut this surface again, it is not going to clean it up. And this has been the problem when I started turning these many decades ago, that I couldn't clean it anyway with a gouge, and you couldn't sand that out. This is why Negative Rake is around today, because of this material. So here we'll just skim again with the gouge. So let's go for a nice fresh cut, going slow, nothing aggressive, using bevel support. And it's tough because I've got a lot of intermittent cutting. So it's a little cleaner, but it's still chipping out. So you can see we're still getting the eyes opening up, and really hard to keep the control. A little better because the gouge is freshly sharpened, but nowhere near the finish that I'm getting with the Negative Rake. So let's finish this area here. And then what we're looking to do is then blend the two together. Then we need to move on. So this is still a little bit on the thick side. Now what I've done, I've grabbed a whole bunch of skews from our schoolroom. And so I've got 4 here, and that means I don't have to go back to the grinder to resharpen these, and that should be more than enough to get 90% of this done. So let's swap out from the gouge, go with the Negative Rake, and let's finish this area down to 1/8 of an inch because it's a little over that right now. Let's see. Now this is the most important area. It gets easier as this gets more and more solid. And again, visibility is the tricky bit. If you're not sure where the start of the cut is, you can actually mark it. I'm going to mark it here so I know where it actually starts. So we need to finish this area completely before we move on because it could warp or it'll just get too thin and too weak. Now I'm using a 10V, also known as A11. This is a really good steel. But not the longest edge steel in the world, second longest after 15V. The burr is still working, and we're not creating any high-pitched screech. But what I'm visualizing here is hard to see. And I've done a lot of these, and it's still hard for me to see, but I'm ending up with a flawless finish here. Do I want to go a little thinner? So I'm willing to sacrifice this one for now. I'm going to call it good. Move on to a fresh one to finish this area. I need this to be flawless, then I can move on, because this is where it's flexing the most. So if you try to come back in with a gouge, it would just deflect away from the cut. If you came in with a regular scraper, it would grab it. So let's place it on there. So that fresh burr makes such a difference. You're not in a rush here. This is the most important part of the whole bowl right here. You're barely taking anything off. Trying to avoid making sure we don't get a high-pitched screech. Let's see if that's finished, and then we can move on. So this bit is the most critical. We got a super sharp edge here. We're a lot thinner. We're about 1/8. We're good. We can move on. Now we got options. Do we want to keep taking this away where we could just keep using the tool whilst it's dull? Do we want to remove a little bit more with the gouge? And move a little bit with the gouge, use the dull chisels, and then pick up the 2 sharp ones. So dull chisels are fine for working it. They're not going to give us the perfect finish. I'll work a little harder. But then we'll use the brand new fresh ones to finish the surface. So we take a little bit off with the gouge, but not too much. We don't want to damage too deep, so this will just help speed things up a little bit. And you see how dry and dusty this wood is? About as much as I want to do with the gouge. Let's use the dull negative rake. Yeah, the burr's gone, but I can still use it to some degree right now. So it'll work the surface down, but it's not giving me the finish. Now we need to move on to a sharp one, but let's see where we're at. So you can see we're close to the thickness here, a little extra support, but it's starting to get more and more flexible. So now's the time to pick up a fresh chisel with a fresh burr. Make sure it's got a fresh burr and it's on the correct side. Let's work this down. Now looking to blend here. So it's slow, but it's worth the time. Because we're looking for a perfect finish. It's extremely dry, extremely dusty. Okay, that's great. Yeah, got a flawless finish on here. Am I getting thicker? Yes. So I need to skim a little bit more off before I move on. Again, I'll finish this, move on. If that's good, we move on. Thickness is even, no tool marks, no tone grain, no chipping. Perfect. Now again, do I want to use the gouge? Do I want to use the dull chisel? Let's do a combination of both. So we've used up 3 chisels so far. We'll use those dull chisels to get us close, and then we'll use the sharp one to finalize. Now this time I can go a little further, but not too far. Maybe it's another 1.5 inches of a material removed. So with the gouge here, now remember there's a corner here, so watch your wrist, pull it back if you have to. Now I'm looking through the piece to make sure I'm not taking off too much material. And get a little closer with the gouge, but this is about the limit. And we probably move a little more here first. See what the gouge is doing? Oh yes, it's definitely chipping it out badly here. So that wouldn't be fixable with sandpaper. I'm getting slightly thick as I'm coming in. That's normal. I want to do that just to give it a bit of support because now it's flexing. Now we're probably not going to work all of this area at once. We're going to work 2/3 of it. So let's take a dull chisel first. We can use any one of these dull ones to get close, and then we'll get to a sharp one to finish off the surface. So I'm using a bit of the side of the chisel as well as the front. So I'm actually running it in sideways a little bit like this. See, I'm using the front. Yeah, definitely dull, this tool. It's gone. So it's sharp. So time to go to a brand new sharpened one. Just cleaning the tool rest, but not taking my finger over the tool rest. Now let's clean this up. Oh, big difference. You can see the difference when the burr is there. Super easy to control. Manageable. Getting the finish we want. But this is only a 3/4 inch wide chisel, so it's starting to dull quickly, but we're tending to use the front of it. That's why we don't need a very wide negative rake scraper right now. And that's starting to lose its edge. But what have we got? So we have a really good finish across here. See a little bit of a blend mark here and here, because we're getting slightly thicker. And I can start to see I'm lifting the grain a little bit here. So time to sharpen these up, blend these in. Then this area is completely finished. So fresh sharpen on these. I'm going to make sure I have a slight dome on these for sure, so I can skim more of the surface and blend out any of the tool marks there. But I'm not feeling any bad tool marks at all. But I feel it's not flawless. So let's get it closer. We'll sharpen up all four, come back, run it one more time, and that should be enough to get this complete. So let's see where we are with this right now, because this is one of the dustiest, driest woods in the world, because it's been here in Colorado for over a decade. And obviously we're not cutting it in a normal way, we're abrading it. So abrading is a form of sandpaper. We're using the burr to abrade away the surface. It's exceptionally good at giving us a finish on here that can't be matched with anything other than sandpaper. But let's see how flat we are. We're pretty flat on here. I think we could possibly, for a moment, take advantage using a wider one. I'm going to try it momentarily to see if we can just get a smoother finish here. It's good, but it's still got some small undulations. So rather than using up my little small ones that I've resharpened again, I'll use those to finish in the last area here. But let's see if we can take advantage of having the wider one, see if it actually works. This is pretty wide. I've never used a 2-inch before. In actually being at an angle, it's more than 2 inches across this surface. Let's see what it does. It feels good. It's taking out some of the high spots I was getting by using joining cuts together. I'm being super light. You can see it's barely taking anything off. But it should be cleaning this up. And I'm working all the way out to the outside, which would be impossible with any other tool. Absolutely impossible. But I'm not being aggressive. I'm not pushing it into the surface. I'm just gliding it. Yep, that seemed to improve it a lot. I think I can do that for a few more seconds because it definitely improved it. And then we'll move on to getting the rest of the wing complete. So it's not lost its burr yet. It's close to losing a burr though. It's getting low, even though it's 15V. See me using the curvature in the blade there. Just follow it around one more time. It might not look like a lot, but that is a lot of material that would take to sand off. And so here, oh yes, that's got it. Very nice. Super crisp edges, super crisp. Grain's looking good. We can move on. Okay, so back to using the small ones. Again, I've got the option, do I want to use the gouge here a little bit? We've got about 1.5 inches to go. We'll use the gouge for a little bit, work another inch, then we'll do the rim of the bowl. Again, the gouge cuts it for removing it, but doesn't give us the finish we want. But let's not go too far. Remember, we need a rim of a bowl here later. getting close. Getting close. We can move a little bit of this mass here, but not too much. But as you can see, even the gouge just makes powder. Taking a fresh skew with a burr on it. And remember, this is 10V, makes a big difference. If you're using M2, M4, M42, you'd be sharpening a little bit more often. Not quite biting the way I wanted there, so I'm coming in with little parting tool marks instead. And let's blend these two areas together. You see, it's just make a lot of powder. Let's put that away because we want to keep using sharp chisels when we can. So when I say sharp, that means it's got a fresh burr. Let's blend this in. It's very tempting to keep going, but if you do, you start working hard, and working harder means you start pushing. If you start pushing, you're going to get a lot of harmonics and vibration marks. It's still got a little bit of life in it. Let's see where we are at. And then let's just show you how flexible this is. That's how flexible this is. Okay, so that's a great blend there. Wall thickness is good. Wall thickness is good. Edge is razor sharp. Let's move on to getting this area finished, ready to hollow out this bowl. So here, I think we can go a little bit longer with this. So we'll use this to roughing down. It's still got some edge in it. Roughing down. Now, from here, I'm going to start cutting the bowl. Now, I was using this edge of the gouge before. I'm going to reverse it, use this edge, and I'm going to cut in this way to cut the top of the bowl. So this is where the bowl pierces through. So I'm looking through the bowl to match the two surfaces. A little more to go. If you're nervous about this, you can finish it with negative rake. That's pretty close. I'm going to blend that in after. Now, whilst this has still got a little bit of life on it, let's get it close. But let's change it up for fresh. And finish that off to be exactly where we want it. Well, that's nice. That's really fresh. Let's blend the surfaces. We want a perfect finish. That's really nice. Perfect through there. Yep. So let's finish this area off and hollow it out. Now we've got options. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the tailstock to make things easier. So I've got more access to it. This piece is so light it won't affect anything. These three chisels have been used a little bit. This one's still fresh. Don't need the big one. And we'll use the gouge in a minute. So from here, let's reset the tool rest. Now, this is where the beading and parting tool can be really good, but let's see. Yeah, let's go with the beading and parting tool. The reason I want to use a beading and parting tool, I want to use the square chisel to get into the corner, to skim this area, going forwards and sideways at the same time. I don't think we need these anymore, so let's do that. So what I've done here is I've sharpened the beading and parting tool both on the bottom and the top. That's created some burrs right here on the side that I can use to clean up here and in the corner. So I'll use a burr on the front to clean up the face. I'll use the burr on the side to clean up the sidewall here and match the two. They're very close. So this is a very good precision tool for this, a little easier to use than a gouge, and it'll give us a superb finish. So burr up, coming down the sidewall here. Hopefully I'm not in the way of the camera too much. Come down into the corner. See, I'm using the side of the chisel. There's the negative rake as well because there's a burr on there. Into the corner to get a perfect corner like we did on the other side. It doesn't require a lot. We were close with the gouge. Fogged up with the dust. I need a little bit more off, and then we are there because it's not quite matching. So a very small amount, just a few thou. There it is. And do it one more time. I think I about need another 2 or 3 thou.
Now this time where you've got to think, do I need to sharpen? It still seems to be okay. Yes, it's still working. Otherwise, time to sharpen.
So what we're looking for is this diameter here to match this diameter here, and looking through it, it looks great. Let's hollow it out with the gouge. We'll use the 40-40, then we'll use the bottom bowl gouge, and then we may need the negative rake scrape the inside as well, but we'll see about that in a moment. So setting the true rest height for my gouge, not for negative rake. Now this is like hollowing out end grain. This is such a crazy grain. We've got to work it steady. We can't work it too aggressively. It's not hollowing out a regular wood. So let's work out the middle and work our way into some depth and some width.
The gouge is the one that want to skid on entry, so make sure we're at the correct height. So everything locked. So here, good support as I start. And you can hear how dense this wood is. Now this is not a particularly deep bowl. And you can see again, it's just making powder. So we'll worry about the bottom of the bowl later. Let's get the wall thickness correct. Let's get close and we'll check it.
And you can truly see we're not getting any form of wood chips from this. It's pure dust, even with the gouge. And it's cutting fantastic with the gouge when we're cutting into it this way. It just doesn't cut well the other way. We can see our thickness here is thinner than here. We want to match the two. I also want to check my thickness. So I have a little bit more volume I can take out the middle. And then we need to get this down to the right thickness. We want to get close, and then we'll likely negative rake scrape it.
So we're moving a little bit more at the middle. Okay, so coming in here to match the inside shape. In fact, this is the time when I'm going to sharpen the gouge. So I'm going to go and get a fresh gouge. We want this to be a perfect cut. It was worth the time to sharpen it up so we know we've got a premium edge here. Let's coming in now. We want to match the thicknesses. I might be a little bit in the way of the camera here, hopefully not too much. Look at my thumb locking it in position. Then I release. That's about as far around as I can get before hitting the rim of the bowl on this little guy.
And let's check our thickness. Thickness is a little tiny bit thicker here than I'd like. Let's just check. Got the option of cutting it one more time or negative rake scraping it. So, but the finish of the gouge on the inside here is great. So I'm going to cut it with the gouge. So I'm only taking off a few thou.
Let's get rid of the middle with the bottom bowl gouge.
Now, being the grain configuration for this, you have to be careful that the bottom bowl gouge will appreciate it, because if this is pure end grain, as in like end grain inside a box, the bottom bowl gouge will react with it a little bit, so we have to be careful that it's not too aggressive on that, but we'll find out. And this particular wood is very different to anything else. So this has a 60-degree bevel on it. We don't need a particularly long handle here because we're not going up the true rest very far. Remember to find the end of the cut, and then we'll work our way out, and then we'll see if we need a negative rake scrape this later. So hand on top but not controlling, so my left is helping to start the cut, but then we release. Helps to get started, and it's cutting okay. It's just incredibly dry. Now we want to come past the original cut from the 40-40 and blend the two. See what we've got. Now let's check our thickness. And the dust is sticking to everything, my visor, but we can definitely go a tiny bit deeper. So I think will blend in. So it's cutting, both gouges are cutting this grate, which is crazy that they won't cut this surface, but they will cut these curved surfaces real well.
So picking up on my 40/40 cut again, sliding down, pick up the cut a little bit earlier, send the cut down a little bit deeper.
Making sure I'm not putting a dimple in the bottom there. That's good. I think this would still benefit from negative rake scraping, although it feels great off the gouge. When you come to sand it, you'll then find out where your imperfections are. So let's reset the tourist height. We'll use 1.5 inch negative rake, swept back. We'll push it to center and swing around, complete the finish on here, and then we're ready to reverse this. But we do need to also skim up the surface. So we'll do that at the very end. We do that normally after sanding. So this is 1.5 inch swept back. See if I'm at the correct height. We should be good. Remember, we push on the center and pull left. We never push on the center and go past center. So definitely messing up my face shield because it's sticking to it like static. So remember, pushing on the center here, a little bit of depth, then sideways. I do that one more time. Push on the center, sideways, and I can work in either direction with this negative rake, it won't mind. So I'm going to swing out, then swing in. I'm going to make this a tiny bit thinner here, and then blend the two cuts together. And I can already feel this has improved the surface considerably. The finish was not bad off the gouge, but that's flawless. Yeah. Now I'm feeling a little bit of a blend mark here. So let's go back in one more time. Let's get that now. It's very subtle, but it's easy to get it out now. That would be really hard to sand out. So let's take the dust off. You can see we're removing quite a bit of material, using more of the nose here. Negative rake is not aggressive. There's that little high spot, it just took it out. Let's check it one more time before we move on. Still a little mark there I don't like, right in. So it's about 3/4 inch in. Let's get that again. So I'm straightening up here a little bit to get below that. There's the blend. And then fade out before I get to the very bottom. So removing considerable amount with what is a burr. And that finish in there is flawless. That is absolutely flawless. I can't feel any undulations, any bump, no torn grain. Perfect. Now let's clean up the face because that I didn't clean up from before. So we'll just take any skew that's still sharp and negative rake scrape that face. Last little bit, undercut that very slightly. And we are now ready to jam chuck this. Okay, so let's take this off and let's put a jam chuck on here so we can reverse this and remove the chuck marks on the base of the bowl. So from here, oh yeah, that is thin and light. We got a great finish. Obviously I would sand and finish it at this stage normally, but we're going to get this finished off showing you the negative rake scraping on the bottom here to get the final thickness and how to jam chuck it. So our jam chuck that I've used for the two other bowls before, same one, it's still good to go. Let's see how it's going to fit this. Now this bowl isn't as deep as the others, so let's see what we've got. Okay, so we're going to need to remove some of this and fit onto this shoulder here. We'll get there close with the gouge. So I'm going to remove a little bit of this so it doesn't interfere with the bowl itself when I go for the final fit. So let's shorten this down a small amount. So that should clear, and then let's put a little taper on here to see where it fits on this. Oh, we got a little ways to go. We may have to go all the way back on this. This jam chuck is a little bit smaller than I thought. So remember we got a chuck in there. So I'm going to remove more of this here right now to make sure it's not in the way. We're going to go for the fit up here. So not a lot of spare material. So not a lot of margin for error. It won't fit quite yet. We'll see that. Okay, so it's going to fit on this shoulder here in a moment. So let's get that cut. Now it'll fit on this taper, but we then need to know where. or not quite, it's just starting on the taper, so let's reduce it down one more time. And reduce down the angle, make sure we're not getting close to the chuck. So not a lot of spare material here, but it will still work. So we are about 1/8 from the top. Let's get that fit with the beading and parting tool for the accuracy. So burr facing up, clean up the sidewall. Going for the fit there. Probably won't fit quite yet, which is what we want. We don't want it to quite fit yet, and then we'll refine it. So now, here's what we're going to do. Before we get all the way there, before we get on too tight, let's take this down and let's see if we can use some tape. Tape's a safeguard. There's not a lot of spare material here. Use a gouge without a handle because I'm going to be moving a tiny amount. Let's scrape that down there. Cut that one more time. Let's see what we've got. Now let's see that corner. I'm not happy with that corner, so I'm going to come with the beading point tool, make sure it is sharp in there. There we go. So it goes all the way in clean. And let's see what kind of fit we have. That is going, that has gone all the way. I think we can use a little bit of tape in there. Ideally for the tape, I need to get that down a little bit smaller. Yep. I need to get down a little bit smaller because we want the tape to not jump a gap. So with the gouge, take a little bit off here. And it's not quite as tight as I'd like. So I'm going to take this slightly more sideways with a slightly more longer taper. It's not as tight as I'd like. So just I'm going to tighten it up a little bit more. We don't want it flying off because this piece is just about done. Oh yeah, that's better. Now, gently bring it up slowly. We don't want to crack it. A little bit lighter tap. What's that? Giving it, just making sure we're not straining it too much. Very light. Perfect. Now the tape's only just going to fit in there. Tape in here. Going to go around twice. Rub it in, and again the tape. How does it work? It works by stopping the piece from creeping. That's what we want to do. We don't want it to creep from off the jam chuck into the cut. Now I don't have a lot of material to remove, none here, just a little bit here. So we'll use the gouge a little bit and then we will finish with negative rake. Now we don't have the strongest grip here, so if you're a little bit nervous about your grip, I'm pretty happy with that. Then bring up your tailstock for a little bit, but I'm just going to go for it here with the gouge, do as much as I can with the gouge. Then we'll move over to negative rake scraping. Now I've got to decide what's the best way to remove this little guy in the bottom. So I'm probably going to come in from the side, but let's just see how it cuts. Because we don't want to disturb this because this piece is basically finished. And let's start slow, see what we've got. Running nice and true, so we haven't created any stack tolerance. So not running out of true. Running at a maximum speed of just under 1200. Let's cut it. Actually, I'm going to cut it in this way. The reason I'm going to cut it this way, I'm pushing towards the jam chuck. It doesn't like it. I can feel it because there's a lot of resistance there because this wood is so dry and so dense. Now let's start forming the shape with not aggressive cuts, not aggressive. Remember, it's only held on by friction, no compression. Keeping the cuts smaller. Got to get rid of that chuck mark. Now let's go for the refined shape with the gouge. And stop there. And let's negative rake scrape that, so we're not stressing it too much. Now, options to negative rake scrape this. I can use a skew. I can use the double angle. I'm going to try the double angle on here if I can, because it allows me to get higher up the piece. So here's a double angle. It may not be quite at the right height because it's set for the gouge. Yes, it is too low. So let's up the tourist a little higher so we can use this a little bit more ergonomically. We're looking good. And check that that's good. So this allows us to work down here
and all the way up high. I do need to move the tool rest around a little bit more, but here I can get really close to the top. Little high spot there, low spot there, so let's work the high spot here. Now in a minute I do need to move the tool rest around a little bit. Can I get it this way? Yes. There we go. So one of the few times where we got a burr we can use in two directions at once with this particular guy. Find that shape. Because the negative rake scraping is not aggressive, it's super easy to control. And that's the bottom of the bowl finished with a phenomenal finish. That is flawless. We have absolutely no lifted grain here whatsoever. This surface is great. We got a great corner, and we're ready to take this off. This piece is done. That's it. Yep, that's super even. Got a great finish inside and outside. We have no torn grain anywhere. Super sharp edges all the way around. This piece, though not big, is a fabulous piece of what is called York gum. It's eucalypt from Western Australia. And this piece was bone dry. It's been at least 10 years dry in Colorado. So you can see that we've absolutely covered our studio in dust. The chips only came off the jam chuck. We were only, we're getting actual shavings off the jam chuck, but we only got dust off this. So this is York gum, finished to perfection, ready for sanding with maybe 180, 220 grade up through to whatever grade you want to go to.
Subscribe and you'll be notified of all my new educational videos as they are released. Liking this video helps me share the information, and let me know if you have any questions through the comments below.